Okay, good afternoon everybody and welcome to this media conference with Gareth Southgate and Conor Coady to preview tomorrow's World Cup qualifier between England and San Marino. As ever, we'll shortly start with Sky Sports News, but before then, a few housekeeping notes. If you can raise your virtual hands as when you've got a question and ideally minimise it to one with the option of a follow-up, that'd be much appreciated. And also if you can state directly who your question is for before asking, that would be helpful for the technical team at this end. So without further ado, Carve, do you want to get us underway?
Gareth, you've called up Conor Gallagher. He looks like David Beckham. Does he play like him as well?
Not sure David Beckham would be very happy with that, Carve, but he's completely different sort of player, frankly. Been very impressed with him. We've tracked Conor for quite a long time. His loan spells at Charlton, at Swansea, which obviously we knew the staff there very well. At West Brom and now at Crystal Palace. So at each loan he's done extremely well. Started the season very well with Palace, and we talked about him when we named the original squad as somebody that we were keen to keep an eye on. And I suppose it's one of the benefits of being with the under-21s, because it was an easy transition for us to bring him across. Already COVID tested, and going from one bubble to the other was straightforward. That's not to say he's only here because of that. He's here because he deserves to be here, but it was an easy transition for us to make.
You've obviously had three players withdrawing: Jordan Henderson, Jack Grealish and Raheem Sterling. As far as Jordan Henderson and Jack Grealish are concerned, is that because of injuries they picked up in the game against Albania, or was it pre-existing issues that they had?
No, with Hendo within the game. With Jack, we think a little bit perhaps within the game, but he trained yesterday, so and as a precaution, we both we've scanned them, so there is small injuries on the scans, so we just hope that they're not going to miss too much football from here on. It shouldn't be too bad in either case, but just have to see how that progresses.
And what was the issue with Raheem?
Yeah, he's got a personal issue, so the first two are injuries, and of course with Mason as well and Luke. We ran out of time really on getting them in with their rehab from the concussion and from the operation.
Obviously, I think even if you lose tomorrow night, you need a 7-goal swing to go against you for you not to qualify for the World Cup. Does that mean tomorrow is an ideal opportunity to make lots of changes to the side? For instance, to have a look at somebody like Aaron Ramsdale?
Well, we will make some changes, but also we haven't qualified yet for the World Cup. And whenever you're bringing players into the team, you want stability as well, so that ideally those players can flourish and everybody's clear on their roles and responsibilities. So we in particular, we always want strong leadership on the pitch. I think it's very important. Any team that you field, we're playing for England. We've set a very high standard of performance the other night, and we've got to continue that into tomorrow.
Can I just bring Conor in now, if I may? Conor, Harry Kane on Friday night broke the record for the most competitive goals scored for England. I just wanted to ask you what he's like to play against in training, what he's like to play against when you play for Wolves, and how does he compare to other strikers you come up against?
One of the best. First and foremost, I think he's a brilliant captain and a fantastic person. I think when you come to England, the way he trains, he looks after himself, he prepares, he does everything to the highest ability that he can do. So I think that's the biggest thing I'd say about him. And then I think his football does his talking for him. You see what he does for Spurs on a weekly basis. I've played against him quite a lot now, and I can't explain to you how tough it is. I'll be honest. He's one of the best strikers in the world, and you see that when you come up against him. But like I said, it's a pleasure to train with him here, just because you look at the way he prepares himself. He looks after his body. He makes sure he's right for every single training session, and listen, it shows in the goals he scores. So an incredible person, but an incredible footballer as well.
And Gareth, I don't think Harry Kane hasn't started any of the games against Andorra or the game against San Marino in March. Do you think almost that if he started those games, he would have had a good record of already breaking Wayne Rooney's record? And do you think, as far as his selection goes tomorrow night, maybe you owe him one?
Well, he's quick to let me know that he hasn't played in those games. And of course, there's a balance for us, because one of the strengths over the last few years is that we've had a really strong squad mentality, and we've wanted to make sure that people that are with us get the opportunities to play. The guys that have perhaps been starting in some of the bigger matches during the summer in particular recognise that they also have a role to support everybody else when the time's right. You know, when you have a squad, it's so important that those that aren't starting support the team that are. So I think that's a good process for everybody in the squad to experience. But equally, we want to make sure that the team we start with tomorrow, there's a statement that we're here to do business, that we're taking this very seriously. We're not qualified yet. We want a strong performance. We've got thousands of England fans travelling, and we must put on a performance that underlines all of the facts I've just spoken about, really.
Just the final question from me. I wanted to ask you about something that I think you may have a unique perspective on as a player and a manager, and also a pundit. Some of your players are getting criticised a lot, not just on social media, but also by ex-players. I mean, one minute they're getting criticised for being like robots, the next minute they're criticised for the way they celebrate goals. Are you concerned about how much modern players are scrutinised and put under the microscope at the moment?
Well, I think we have to always understand that the industry we're in, there are different roles, and in order to make a living in those different roles, you've got to take certain approaches. So you have a choice of which type of approach you're going to take. I was always thinking, as an ex-player, ex-manager, recognising how difficult those things were. So I guess I had empathy for those that were stepping over the line to play and those that were in the dugout. It really depends on what you need to do to stay in work. You know, some channels or forums require headlines. Some channels or forums require a certain type of approach. Everything's different. So I understand that. To stay relevant in some of those fields, you've got to say things that are more quotable, and of course everything's lifted now and used from the live broadcasts for the next day's headlines. Everybody in those shows knows that's how it works, and it fills a different part of our industry. So I think that's where we're at. Personally, as a manager, I get it, and so be it, you know. But yeah, I'm sure for the players, maybe they might feel differently. They're younger, they've less experience of all of those different fields that perhaps I've got. And they're probably thinking that there are players who surely remember how difficult it was to play, and that they probably didn't like it when they were criticised, and that to step over the white line is the most difficult thing. I'm sure they feel that a little bit differently to somebody of my age. So, but I get it. That's the industry, and so be it.
Can I just ask Conor as well on the same issue? For instance, Harry Maguire has been getting a lot of criticism. What is it like as players when you are criticised, not just by fans and social media, but also by ex-players? And how does it affect somebody like Harry, and how do you deal with it?
I'll be honest with you, from a player's point of view, it's tough. You don't want to be criticised. You don't want people to have a go at you. You want to impress your own support and your own club, and whether you're playing for your club or your country, you want to impress people as much as you possibly can. So it's tough, but I can't speak on behalf of the big fella, but I think in terms of he's a real strong character. I think we're all strong character in this group, and we know how to take criticism, but as a question, if you ask us if it's nice, of course it's not, but we understand as footballers this is what comes, and I think at times you think as a player that you can't really win. You'll do one thing and someone will have a pop at you, you'll do another thing, someone else will have a pop at you, but that's part and parcel of being a football player. So I think for us, we're big enough and ugly enough to move on with things and get on with criticism. We know it's part of the game. So listen, like I said, the big fella's a real strong character within this group, a captain within the Premier League at one of the biggest clubs in the world, and a fantastic footballer. So like I said, he's someone who'll move forward with that.
Thank you, Carvey. Next we'll go to Alex Howell, BBC Sport.
Hi, Gareth. Two players are in the squad now that you mentioned at the beginning of the week from the under-21s. How hard has it been to deal with the fitness issues this week, and does bringing those players in show the strength in depth that this group has?
Well, you get certain camps through the calendar where you just seem to have a string of issues to deal with, and this has been one of them, but we've been very calm about that all the way through, very clear on the way that we might need to play so that we've got cover, and therefore who we would need to call in. We didn't want to call too many people in because we don't need to travel with huge numbers, but of course you don't want to be short for the game either. So it's become an even better opportunity for Emil and now for Conor. They deserve that both for their club form and for the way they've played with the under-21s and their professionalism with the under-21s. So never easy, but I think those two boys have earned the opportunity, and there's great competition for places. If they play well, they have a chance to stay with us, and of course that they would need to continue playing well for their club, but that's the opportunity that presents itself.
And one for Conor, please. Just to follow up on the criticism, do you have like a personal process yourself to how you deal with it when you're criticised?
No, not at all. Not at all. I think the best thing about it as footballers is that we go and play football the next day. We can put it right in training. We can look at training and find out where we need to work and get better. And listen, we all have bad performances. We all have bad games that we're involved in. And I think every single footballer, every single person within football, I think gets criticised at some point. But the great thing about it is that we can go and play football again the next day and do our best to put it right as much as we can. So not really a process, just understanding when you've gone wrong, when you've done something wrong, to make sure you work as hard as you possibly can to put it right the next day.
Thanks, Alex. Next is Scott Wilson, the Northern Echo.
Hi, Gareth. Gareth, you've called up obviously a couple of players from the under-21s into the squad, but there's a group of probably more experienced players who have been in squads in the last couple of years, who aren't at the minute. So, like a Maddison or a Callum Wilson or a Patrick Bamford. Is it harder for them to break back in, if you know what I mean? Because obviously you're keen to promote youth, and to what extent is the door still open for kind of that type of player?
Well, we haven't had an opening for a forward, and Patrick's been injured as well. So, and in terms of the others, we think Conor and Emil are playing better than others that we could have called in. Simple as that. The door's never closed. I like the idea of bringing young players in as well, because you're investing in England's future. It would be easier, perhaps in the short term, to bring in an older player, but I'm not certain there are older players that are playing better than those two at this current moment in time in the positions that they're playing.
Okay, we don't appear to have any other questions, so I think we can conclude it there. Thanks for joining us this afternoon.